months ago, my girlfriend and I purchased this 125-year-old house here in Denmark for just around 120,000 US dollars. We immediately started renovating and ran into issues.
What the
But there is one room where things are looking alright.
Welcome to the living room, which is, I guess, the first room in this house where we are close to being done. So I thought I'd give you a quick tour and show you how we built some of these cool things here, and also what we have done to, I guess, keep the character of this 125-year-old house.
We got started by pulling up the beautiful laminate flooring here, and we were actually really surprised to find the beautiful old wooden flooring. So to bring back some of the house's character, of course we had to keep it. We got it sanded by a professional and it turned out pretty great.
And I think it's only appropriate to start with the big built-in shelf here behind me, because it is, I guess, the focal point of these two living rooms. And it is actually a DIY IKEA shelf. So I'll quickly take you through how I built this big unit. So the lower part down here are actually upper kitchen cabinets from IKEA. And they're just placed on top of I guess like 2x4s, but just to raise it up a little bit. Then of course I screwed all that together, and on top of the cabinets I just got I think this is a 19mm MDF as a top plate running through the whole part. And all of the shelves you see here are actually the IKEA Billy unit. So just a cheap regular bookshelf from IKEA. And there's a mix of the wide option and the narrow option. But if you know the Billy units, they have like a big base plate part, and I didn't want that look on top of the top plate here. So what I ended up doing was to actually not put the top plate on the Billy units themselves, and then I flipped them around. So this here is actually the top of the unit, if that makes sense. And the bottom part is up on the top. But that just makes it look a lot more built in, because it just go straight into the top plate here. And on the sides we just have some MDF strips just to cover up all the gaps. And you'll see that as well in the top. And of course I then in the end added the crown molding across, so it really makes it look built in. And I did paint everything with the same paint just to make it look a little bit less IKEA-ish and make it blend very nicely. Because there's one quite annoying thing actually that I learned about the wide unit and the narrow unit of the Billy shelf. They have these back covers that you put on, and I do have those on. But on the wide unit and the narrow unit, those are different. Like they have a different texture, a different color, so it just looked really weird. So I also had to paint that back plate, and I think if I had to do something different, I would probably try to avoid those back plates. I did end up just simply caulking basically everywhere where the plates meet, and also filling up all the little holes that we didn't use.
The cabinet doors are also from IKEA, the Vidinge door that just fit the size of the cabinets. Then I just glued on the molding and painted everything. And finally just added these handles.
And this built-in TV unit in the other room is actually exactly the same as the bottom part of the built-in shelf. So just those IKEA upper cabinets, the doors with the trim, handles, and a top plate of MDF. And then it's just screwed into the wall. And it just gives a lot of nice storage, and I think kind of ties the two rooms together really nicely.
The TV unit was the first thing that I built basically in this whole house. And I did make one pretty big mistake. And you can perhaps see it over here. So I built the unit before adding any of the baseboards or anything, and I didn't really factor that into the build. So I just pushed it all the way up against this wall. And of course that gave me problems when I had to add the baseboards. So there is this gap here just so it allows me to still open the door. Now, like day to day, I don't really notice this at all anymore, but it's still one of those small things that are really annoying. But I guess I learn as I go. It's also a little bit weird for me having two living rooms. Before we moved here, we lived in like a small apartment that was basically the same size as these two living rooms. So it's weird, but it's really nice. It's also really weird having two couches, one for watching TV and one for just hanging out. One of the big things I did here in the living room was to add the molding. Now, I don't know if this particular house did have molding back in the day, but it is possible, and it is at least very fitting with this style and this type of house for the time period it was built in. So I guess I tried designing the whole living room around the molding and this type of style. But at the same time, I wanted to make it as easy for myself as possible. So all of this molding here is just added directly onto the wall and then just painted. And that's a quite easy and cheap way to do it. And it does look really nice, in my opinion at least. It does take quite a long time to do this actually. You have to imagine, first, gotta measure out everything, where everything sits, how big each panel is going to be and everything. Make the cuts. I just glued all of this on and it sits very securely. Then caulking everywhere takes forever. Then I primed it, painted and painted. And I used the same paint for the molding and this part of the wall actually. So it's a bit more, I guess, of a shiny paint. And it just makes it stand out a little bit more compared to the other part of the wall. 'Cause I'm ready for a forest fire, a forest fire. The floor is another big part of restoring this living room back to its former glory. This is the original flooring. The one issue perhaps, and I guess also why that the previous owners probably covered it at one point, that it's not insulated. So here in winter, the floor can get a little bit foot cold. But at least for now, that's the sacrifice that we're making. We also have to talk about these weird windows here. I'm pretty sure these are not original or anything. And honestly, I don't really like them, but we decided on just making the most of it, keep them and make them, I guess, part of the design. And adding this trim around it really make them stand out a bit more, especially when we painted the wall. So this trim again took really long time to set up, caulk and paint. And again, it is in that style and spirit of the old house and it fits really well. Now, as I mentioned, we aren't really finished in the living room. There are still a lot of smaller things that we need to get done. Stuff like replacing these lamps here in the windows. They were just here when we moved in and we don't like them, but we haven't found anything better yet. This door is missing a handle. The paint job here is really terrible. We want to build like radiator covers around the radiators here. We are also missing some light sources and we do want to hang some art up on the wall. Whatever's going on up here needs to be fixed. But it is really nice to have a space that is almost finished and that we can keep clean and keep all of the tools and dust away from. If we look into the other rooms, it's a big mess, but that's how it is when you're renovating a home while you're living there. It gets super messy, but now we do have a space where we can retreat to and relax. And we also feel like we are making at least some progress on the house. Now we have a room that we are basically finished with. Talk a little bit about some of the design choices that I've made here in the living room. So I wanted to keep it in a style that's very true to the house, but of course with a more modern look and utilizing a lot of the furniture and the pieces that we already had and things that we just like and that fit our style as well. So you can probably see that everything is very white and beige. I'm pretty sure in 1900 they weren't painting their walls beige or having a white couch, but we like it. It's very calm and nice. But it still carries some of that original charm, I think at least. For example, this couch we've had for a few years now, and considering that it's basically a white couch, it's surprisingly still very clean and free of stains. Now, I'm definitely not an interior designer by any means, but we are really starting to like how this living room is coming together. We like how it looks, but more importantly, we enjoy just being here and hanging out. It's a very nice and calm area. It's really cozy in the evening as well. But even things like decorating a place like this is just an ongoing process. We still have so many things left, or little things that we're not sure where to put or what we want to put in a certain place. Like the rubber tree behind me here. I just put it here at one point just so it would get some more natural light. And now it's just been sitting there for a few months, kind of in the middle of the room, not really on purpose. Then of course the big shelving unit is looking really empty. We simply just don't have enough stuff to put on them. So that'll be an ongoing process. And there's also just things that you kind of discover as you use a space. Like first we had actually bought this little side table to use here with the couch, but it was just way too small and looked super out of proportions. So we had to get a new one, and it does fit a little bit better. And both the carpets, those were some that we've had for many years, and we're not sure that we even want to use these like in the long run, but we have them for now and it works. But this one in here is probably a little bit small, and then having two white rugs. Now, I haven't kept an exact budget of everything, unfortunately, but all the pieces from IKEA for both the shelf unit and the TV unit cost 6,900 Danish kroner, so just under $1,000 US. We paid like 9,000 Danish kroner for the planing and the sanding of the floor. Then we spent like 22,000 Danish kroner or $3,000 on all the molding, panels, trim, and baseboards. Surprisingly very expensive. However, so far we have only used around half of what we bought on the living rooms here. So it's more like 12,000 Danish kroner worth of moldings, etc. used so far. So best estimate is that we spend about 30,000 Danish kroner or around $4,200 on the living rooms. Not counting, of course, all the furniture besides the built-ins. I hope you've enjoyed seeing what we've done with the living room so far. I would love to know what you think, or perhaps what you would have done differently here. But either way, thanks for watching, and consider following along if you want to see what we do with the rest of the house, because it's a process.